Sarah Mitchell stood in the rain outside St. Mary's Church, watching them carry the casket. She had flown 12 hours from Singapore to attend her mentor's funeral, but nothing prepared her for what she was about to learn. Robert Chen had taught her everything about architecture. For 5 years, she had worked at his small but respected firm in Seattle, learning how buildings could change lives and communities. Then she had left for international projects, always planning to return and become his partner. Now he was gone. Heart attack, they said. Stress, they whispered. After the service, Robert's widow Martha pulled Sarah aside in the church basement. The older woman's hands shook as she handed Sarah a manila folder. "He wanted you to have this," Martha said quietly. "He was writing you a letter when it happened." Sarah opened the folder. Inside were documents, emails, and Robert's unfinished letter. As she read, her chest tightened. 3 years ago, a developer named Marcus Holt had approached Robert about a luxury apartment project in the Greenwood neighborhood. Robert had been excited until he reviewed the plans. The building violated multiple safety codes. The foundation design was inadequate for Seattle's earthquake zone. Corners were cut everywhere. Robert had refused to sign off. He had reported the violations to the city. He had done everything right. Marcus Holt had destroyed him for it. The document showed a systematic campaign. False complaints filed against Robert's firm. Lies spread to his clients. Pressure on the city council. One by one, Robert's projects were cancelled. His reputation was torn apart. Within 18 months, his firm collapsed. Robert's letter ended mid-sentence. "Sarah, you always asked me what real architecture means. It means building things that last, that protect people, that stand for something. Marcus Holt builds with money and lies. Someone needs to." Sarah closed the folder. Through the basement window, she could see the rain had stopped. She knew exactly what Robert had been about to write. Someone needs to stop him. She looked at Martha. "Tell me everything." Sarah did not return to Singapore. Instead, she rented a small apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood and began her research. Marcus Holt was not difficult to study. He loved attention. His face appeared in business magazines, charity galas, and development announcements. At 48, he had built Holt Properties into one of Seattle's largest real estate development companies. On the surface, he seemed successful and respected. But Sarah dug deeper. She spent 3 months in public records offices, online databases, and city archives. She created spreadsheets tracking every property Holt had developed in the past 15 years. She noted patterns. Holt specialized in rapid development in gentrifying neighborhoods. He acquired properties cheap, built quickly, and sold high. His buildings were always barely within code requirements. He had a network of inspectors, city officials, and contractors who looked the other way. More importantly, Sarah discovered his weakness: greed. Marcus Holt could not resist a profitable deal, even a risky one. He overextended himself regularly, borrowing heavily to finance multiple projects simultaneously. He stayed afloat by selling buildings quickly and moving to the next project. Sarah realized something crucial. Holt's empire was built on speed and cash flow. If either stopped, the whole structure would collapse. She began phase 1 of her plan. First, she needed credibility. She took a position at a prestigious architecture firm in Seattle, working on sustainable housing projects. She published articles about earthquake-resistant design. She spoke at conferences. Within a year, she had rebuilt her professional reputation. Second, she needed proximity. She joined boards of urban planning committees, historic preservation societies, and neighborhood development groups. She positioned herself as an expert on Seattle's building codes and zoning laws. Finally, she needed Marcus Holt to know she existed, but not as a threat. At a downtown development conference, Sarah approached him during the networking hour. She introduced herself as an architect interested in affordable housing solutions. She complimented one of his recent projects, while knowing it had already developed drainage problems. Marcus Holt smiled his professional smile, shook her hand, and forgot about her immediately. Perfect, Sarah thought. He had no idea who Robert Chen was to her. She had deliberately kept her maiden name and avoided mentioning her past. The trap was being set. But it would take patience. 18 months after Robert's funeral, Sarah made her first direct move against Marcus Holt. It began with a neighborhood called Riverside Heights, a working-class area where long-time residents were being pushed out by rising rents. Holt Properties had purchased an entire block of old apartment buildings. The plan was to demolish them and build luxury condos. Sarah had studied the Riverside Heights project carefully. The environmental impact report was incomplete. The traffic study used outdated data. Most importantly, the demolition permit application contained errors. She did not file complaints herself. That would be too obvious. Instead, she attended a community meeting about the development. She sat quietly in the middle of the room as frustrated residents expressed concerns. When the meeting opened for questions, Sarah raised her hand. "I'm an architect," she said calmly. "I've reviewed the public documents for this project. I think the community should know that the environmental impact report doesn't address the wetlands on the western edge of the property. Under City Code Section 23.60, that wetland requires a 50-foot buffer zone. The current plans build within 30 feet of it." The room went silent. A community organizer named Elena Rodriguez wrote down everything Sarah said. "Also," Sarah continued, "the traffic study was conducted in July and August during summer break. It doesn't reflect school year traffic patterns, even though the development is 3 blocks from an elementary school." She sat down. She had said enough. Over the next week, Elena and other community members filed formal objections with the city. They cited exactly what Sarah had pointed out. The city planning department had no choice but to review the application more carefully. Holt's project was delayed by 6 months. Sarah read about it in the business section while drinking her morning coffee. The article mentioned that Holt Properties would need to redo the environmental and traffic studies, costing approximately $200,000 and delaying the project timeline. She felt no satisfaction yet. This was just the first small crack. But Marcus Holt noticed. At the next planning committee meeting Sarah attended, she saw him across the room. He was talking with a city council member. His expression frustrated. Good, she thought. Let him feel the pressure of delays. Let him feel what Robert felt. The contract of revenge had begun. Over the next year, Sarah expanded her campaign like an architect adding floors to a building. Each action was legal, ethical, and carefully calculated. She identified 5 major Holt Properties developments in various stages of planning or construction. For each one, she found legitimate issues. For the Belltown Tower project, she noticed that the building's shadow would violate downtown view corridor protections during certain months. She mentioned this casually to a city council member at a fundraiser. An investigation followed. For the Georgetown warehouse conversion, she discovered that Holt's contractor was using a concrete mixture that didn't meet seismic safety standards. She sent an anonymous tip to the building inspector, backed up with photographic evidence she had gathered during a public open house. For the University District student housing complex, she helped student groups understand that the building's noise insulation was below city requirements for residential buildings near nightlife districts. The students filed complaints. The city required expensive modifications. Each action alone was minor. Together, they created a pattern of delays and cost overruns. Sarah never appeared as the primary complainant. She worked through community groups, neighborhood associations, and concerned citizens. She provided them with information and let them take action. Her name rarely appeared in any official documents. But Marcus Holt's projects were experiencing unprecedented scrutiny and delays. Sarah tracked the effects through public records and news coverage. Holt Properties had to refinance 2 projects due to extended timelines. The company's credit rating dropped slightly. Investor confidence began to waver. She also noticed something else. Marcus Holt was responding predictably. Instead of improving his practices, He was trying to move faster on other projects to compensate for the delays. He was taking bigger risks, cutting more corners, borrowing more money. Exactly as Sarah had anticipated. One evening, Sarah sat in her apartment surrounded by papers, photographs, and timelines. On her wall was a large chart showing all of Holt's active projects, color-coded by status. Red for delayed, yellow for on schedule, green for completed. The chart was mostly red and yellow now. Her phone rang. It was Elena Rodriguez from the Riverside Heights Community Group. "Sarah, we did it," Elena said excitedly. The city denied Holt's revised permit. The wetland buffer issue was too significant. He'll have to completely redesign the project or abandon it. "That's wonderful news for the community," Sarah said, and she meant it. Whatever her personal motivations, real people benefited from these actions. Real neighborhoods were protected. After hanging up, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. But then she saw her reflection in the window, backlit by the glow of her laptop. For a moment she looked tired and cold. She pushed the thought away. This was justice, she told herself. This was for Robert. But a small voice in her mind whispered, "Are you sure?" Sarah's phone rang on a Tuesday morning with an unexpected opportunity. "Ms. Mitchell, this is David Park from Holt Properties. Mr. Holt would like to meet with you about a potential consulting position." Sarah's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. "I'm sorry, what?" "We've been impressed with your work on sustainable design and code compliance. Mr. Holt is looking to improve our practices, and your name came up in several conversations. Would you be available for a meeting?" Sarah's mind raced. This was not part of her plan, but it was better than anything she had planned. "Of course," she said.